I want to tell you about the moment I decided to stop protecting people who didn't deserve my protection. But I need to start with the sound of a wine glass being set down so hard that every conversation at the dinner table stopped cold. Saturday, my sister Tanya said, her voice carrying the certainty of someone who had rehearsed this moment. Your things need to be out by Saturday, Elena. I remember my fork being halfway to my mouth. I remember my brother-in-law Marcus not making eye contact with anyone. I remember my father, he just leaned back in his chair and made this sound, somewhere between a laugh and a snort. A dismissal. It's about time, Dad said. You're 34 years old living off your sister like this. No one at that table questioned whether it was true. No one asked. They simply accepted the narrative like it was documented fact. Here's what I need you to understand right now. I need you to imagine being the one person in that room who knows the actual truth. Imagine sitting there, absorbing insults about your character, your worth, your contribution, while everyone you love nods in agreement with the lie. I'm telling you this because I think most of us have been there in some version. Maybe not at a family dinner table, but somewhere. Somewhere you were accused of something you didn't do, and the people who loved you chose to believe the story that was easier to believe. I set my fork down slowly. I looked directly at Tanya. All right, I said. I'll be gone by Saturday. She expected tears. She expected me to bargain, to explain, to defend myself with desperation. Instead, I picked up my phone and opened my banking application beneath the table where no one could see. My fingers moved through the menus with this strange sense of clarity that only comes when you've been pushed beyond the point of caring what anyone thinks. Tanya smiled like she had won something. She had no idea that in those quiet moments, I was about to remove the foundation her entire life was built on. The dinner continued, but I experienced it like I was watching from outside my body. Tanya became louder, telling my cousin about how draining it had been to support another adult. She discussed how difficult the mortgage was, how expensive groceries had become, how exhausting it was to be the backbone of everything. Dad leaned forward and patted her shoulder with this expression of profound pride. This is what real strength looks like, he announced to the table. Not everyone can carry this kind of weight. Tanya, you're holding this family together while raising 2 children and managing my medical appointments. That's extraordinary. Marcus stared at his plate. I watched his forehead tighten when Tanya claimed she had paid every single mortgage payment herself. That small reaction told me everything. He knew the truth, and he was watching his wife build a monument to a lie that he was too afraid to contradict. I need to tell you what happened before this dinner. I need to take you back almost 2 years, because that's the only way this moment makes sense. I had closed on my first condo just before my 30th birthday. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, the physical proof that I had built something on my own. The inspection, though, revealed catastrophic problems. The plumbing was corroding. The electrical system was dangerous. The entire interior needed reconstruction before I could even move in. I was looking at months of renovation work, and I needed somewhere to stay while contractors worked. Tanya called me. Stay with us, she said. You can have the guest room. It'll just be a few months. She sounded certain. Hopeful. We're family. You shouldn't be stressed about this. 3 months passed. Then contractors hit complications. What should have been finished by November stretched into February. And then in March, Tanya called me into the kitchen after Marcus left for work. She looked devastated, hollowed out. I need to tell you something, she whispered. The bank was threatening foreclosure. Let me pause here because I want you to feel what I felt when she said those words. Her voice was shaking. She had been hiding this from everyone, from Marcus, from Dad, from everyone. She told me the construction company Marcus worked for had gone through terrible months. The work dried up. Instead of cutting expenses, they had reached for credit cards. Then more credit cards. Now the mortgage was months behind. Utility notices were piling up. My father, who had recently retired and moved in with them, had medical expenses that were mounting. Tanya covered her face with both hands. I don't know what to do, she whispered through her fingers. I can't lose this house. I can't let them know how bad it is. Kevin can't feel like he failed. Dad. She trailed off. I reached across the table. How much do you need every month? She hesitated. She did the math right there in front of me, and I watched her face as she calculated. Her hands were trembling. $3,200, she finally said. But Elena, I can't ask you for that. That's too much. I shouldn't have even told you. The number was enormous. It was more than I thought I could sustain. But I was thinking about my father's pride, about Marcus's sense of failure, about Tanya's panic. I was thinking about how terrifying it must be to stand on the edge of losing everything. I can send you 3,200 every month, I said. Her eyes filled with tears immediately. I can do this. But nobody can know. I don't want Marcus feeling ashamed. I definitely don't want Dad humiliated. She nodded frantically. I swear to you, Elena. I will never forget this. Never. She meant it. In those first months, she meant it completely. Every time the transfer went through, she thanked me. The thank yous were warm, genuine. Then over time, they became shorter. Thanks for the deposit. Then they stopped altogether. Helping quietly had become expected. It had become invisible. I started seeing things. A brand new SUV appeared in their driveway one afternoon. Not a practical car, a luxury vehicle. Then, a 70-inch television replaced the modest one in the living room. Tanya started carrying designer handbags. Her children had expensive electronics. Whenever I asked whether things were finally improving financially, she always gave the same answer: we're barely making it. Yet she was still waiting for my transfer every month before paying the bills. She had structured her entire household around my money while telling the world she was managing everything herself. Marcus never asked questions. He worked long hours, trusted his wife to handle finances, and came home exhausted. I would watch him during family gatherings while Dad praised Tanya's strength and capability. Marcus would nod along, and I could see him unconsciously accepting the narrative that his wife was the strong one, the capable one. He had no idea his entire family's stability was funded by me, sitting quietly in the corner. But here's the thing about that silence: it becomes a cage. Protecting people requires a specific kind of sacrifice. You have to absorb their judgment without correcting them. You have to accept their gratitude and then their ingratitude without showing hurt. You have to become smaller, quieter, less real. I sealed another moving box with tape. My phone buzzed. The contractor sent photos of my condo kitchen. The tile was installed. The cabinets were finished. The countertop gleamed in afternoon sunlight. Everything was finally ready. I smiled for the first time in what felt like weeks. Then I opened my banking app one last time. Every recurring payment connected to Tanya's household was still scheduled to process early Monday morning. The mortgage contribution, the utility payment, the homeowner's insurance, my father's prescription drug coverage, the grocery account replenishment. I selected each one. One after another, I pressed cancel. Are you sure you want to end this recurring payment? The app asked. Yes. Confirmation. 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 5 simple notifications. 5 decisions that would change everything. I placed my phone on top of the last sealed box and listened to Tanya downstairs, laughing with Dad about how peaceful the house would finally be without me. She can be so ungrateful, Tanya said. Neither of them realized that peace had just become significantly more expensive. Saturday morning arrived with far more activity than I had expected. When I carried my first box downstairs, 3 cars were already parked in the driveway. My Aunt Carol stepped out of one. Behind her came my cousin James, Uncle Robert, and 2 other relatives I barely knew, all carrying empty storage bins. Tanya clapped her hands together like she was hosting a party. Perfect timing. Elena's finally moving out. Everyone smiled at me, but the smiles carried something, pity maybe, or judgment. Tanya had already told them her version. She had positioned herself as the exhausted protector, and me as the ungrateful burden. I figured we'd all help, Aunt Carol said, but her tone suggested they were helping Tanya by removing me, not helping me transition. It's never easy starting over. Thanks, I replied quietly. Marcus carried one of my heavier boxes toward the rental truck. As he passed, he spoke so softly only I could hear. You really don't have to leave like this. I met his eyes. Do I have a choice? He glanced toward Tanya before answering. I don't know anymore. Before I could respond, Tanya called out loudly enough for everyone to hear. Marcus, don't baby her. She's had enough free rides. A few relatives chuckled awkwardly. My father walked onto the porch holding a coffee mug. He looked around at everyone gathered and seemed genuinely proud. I told Tanya months ago she'd have to put her foot down, he announced. He pointed toward me. Some people get too comfortable living off family. They forget what it means to earn your place. The entire yard went silent. Every conversation stopped. I could feel every pair of eyes on me. Angela shifted uncomfortably. Uncle Robert looked down at the driveway. Nobody defended me. Nobody said a word. Tanya crossed her arms. Do you know how much groceries have gone up? She laughed this brittle, performative laugh. Imagine feeding another adult who doesn't contribute. Imagine the electricity bill with someone who refuses to help. The words landed exactly how she intended. Several relatives nodded. One even muttered, "That's rough, Tanya." I tightened my grip on the box in my hands, but I kept walking toward the truck. Arguing wouldn't change anything. The lie had already been told too many times. It had become truth in everyone's mind. As I came back for another load, Marcus stopped me near the hallway closet. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Bridget," I said yes, and he glanced toward the living room to make sure Tanya wasn't listening. "I've been meaning to ask you something." "What is it?" He looked at the banker boxes stacked beside the front door. The boxes I'd been carefully packing all morning. "Those seem important." "They are. What do they contain?" I smiled faintly. "Just records." His forehead creased with confusion, and something else, curiosity, maybe, or suspicion. "Records of what?" "You'll probably find out soon enough." Before he could ask another question, Tanya called his name sharply. He walked away, but I could see the uncertainty growing on his face. The question I had planted was beginning to root. As the truck filled and the morning progressed, the relatives gathered in the front yard, talking among themselves. Tanya stood in the center of their group like she was hosting a celebration. "I honestly didn't think she'd actually go through with it," she announced. "I kept giving her chances. I didn't want to throw my own sister out." She sighed dramatically, like the whole situation had been an exhausting burden. "But sometimes you have to choose your own family first." Several people murmured their agreement. It was a beautiful performance. And then Aunt Carol asked a question that Tanya clearly hadn't anticipated. "So, how are you and Marcus going to manage everything now that Elena's gone?" Tanya laughed without hesitation. "We've never depended on Elena for anything. We've handled this house ourselves from day one." Silence fell over the group like a physical thing. I had just stepped onto the porch carrying my final box. Every word reached me clearly. Tanya continued, and she looked directly at me when she spoke. "Isn't that right, Elena?" "For the first time all morning," I answered. I answered in front of everyone. "I hope that's true." The smile disappeared from Marcus's face. He slowly turned toward Tanya. She avoided looking at him completely. I carried the last box to the truck, closed the tailgate, and climbed into the driver's seat. As I started the engine, Marcus's eyes drifted back to the neatly labeled banker boxes sitting beside me. He watched the truck pull away, and I could see it in his expression, the beginning of understanding. He was wondering why a woman who supposedly contributed nothing was leaving with years of carefully organized financial records. I had been inside my new condo for less than 3 hours when my phone buzzed. "Tanya." I let it ring until it stopped. A minute later, it rang again. Then again. I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter and continued unpacking dishes. The contractors had finished exactly as promised. Fresh paint covered the walls. Sunlight poured through every window. And for the first time in nearly a year, I was standing in a home that belonged entirely to me. Then another call came. This time it was Marcus. I answered. "Hello?" His voice sounded strained, careful. "Elena, did something happen with your bank?" I already knew what he was talking about. "What do you mean?" "The mortgage payment didn't go through this morning." I leaned against the counter, looking out at my new kitchen. "It wasn't supposed to." Silence. "I don't understand." "I stopped making it." "You what?" I interrupted gently. "You asked me to move out." "No," he said. "I didn't ask. Tanya did." "And you agreed." Marcus exhaled slowly. "I thought you were just helping with groceries once in a while." I had no idea. Before I could explain further, I heard Tanya shouting in the background. "Tell her to fix it!" Marcus lowered his voice. "Can we talk later? You should probably look through the folders first." "What folders?" "The ones I took with me. The financial records." The call ended. I knew exactly what would happen next. Back at their house, confusion was transforming into panic. Tanya was refreshing the mortgage account over and over. Why is it saying payment failed? Marcus looked at the screen. It says insufficient funds. That was impossible. She had just received the $3,200 this morning. She logged into another account. The electricity bill showed overdue. The automatic payment had disappeared. Next came the water bill. Then homeowner's insurance. Every single recurring payment showed the same status, cancelled. Tanya grabbed her phone and dialed me again. No answer. My father walked into the kitchen carrying a small paper bag from the pharmacy. They said my prescription wasn't approved, he told her quietly. Tanya barely looked up. Call them back. I did, Dad said. They said my insurance payment wasn't received. Kevin slowly turned toward him. What insurance payment? My prescription plan. I thought you paid for it, Tanya. Richard shook his head. I thought your sister handled it. Tanya froze. Marcus looked at his wife. You've been paying your dad's insurance. Tanya swallowed. No. Then who has been? Neither of them answered. Marcus walked toward the home office. I want to see every bank statement. Every single one. Tanya hurried after him. Marcus, this isn't no, he interrupted. This is exactly the time. He opened the filing cabinet, and what he found stopped him cold. Inside were folders sorted meticulously by month. He frowned. I've never seen these before. Tanya stepped forward. Those aren't important. But he pulled one out anyway. Inside were printed statements, electronic transfers, payment confirmations, mortgage receipts, utility invoices. Every page carried the same name as the sender, Elena Hart. Marcus's expression changed completely. He grabbed another folder, then another, then another. Every single month looked identical. A deposit from his sister-in-law, followed immediately by mortgage payments, insurance payments, electric bills, water bills, groceries, internet, property taxes, everything. He flipped through nearly 2 years of records, 24 folders representing 24 months of the same story. When he finally looked up, his voice barely came out. Tanya. She wouldn't meet his eyes. You told me you were paying these. Tanya remained silent. You let everyone believe Elena was living off us. More silence. Their father picked up one of the statements, and his hands began to tremble. These numbers. The transfers. $3,200. Every month? He turned another page, then another. His face lost all color. He whispered almost to himself, I called her a leech. I called her selfish. She never corrected anyone. She was protecting us. Tanya grabbed her phone again and called me. This time I answered. Elena. Her voice was shaking. You canceled everything. Yes, you've put us in an impossible position. I remained calm. No, Tanya, you did. The moment you told me to move out was the moment I stopped protecting your image. Before she could answer, Marcus reached across the table and quietly took the phone from her hand. He looked at another folder that had slipped open. It contained every transfer receipt along with the signed automatic payment authorizations that proved I had been carrying their household from the beginning. He sat down slowly, the thick folder still open in front of him. No one spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock. He picked up another stack of papers and spread them across the table. January, February, March. Month after month, every statement told the same story. A $3,200 transfer from Elena Hart. Minutes later, the mortgage payment processed. Then the electric bill, the water bill, the homeowner's insurance, the grocery account. Finally, the insurance premium covering their father's prescriptions. There wasn't a single missing month. Marcus looked at his wife. How long? Tanya swallowed. Almost 2 years. His eyes widened. 2 years? And you never told me? She shook her head. I didn't know what else to do. So you accepted her money? His voice cracked. And then told everyone she was living off us? Tanya covered her face with both hands. I never planned for it to go this far. Their father slammed his palm against the table. The sound echoed through the kitchen. It went this far because you let it. No one had ever heard him raise his voice at Tanya before. You listened while I called Elena a freeloader. You listened while I insulted my own daughter. Tanya couldn't answer. Marcus slowly closed one folder and opened another. Inside was a handwritten note in my writing. At the top, I had written, monthly household support, It listed every recurring payment I had agreed to cover when Tanya first asked for help. At the bottom, there was one sentence. I need you to read this sentence because it matters. No one else needs to know. Family should never have to feel ashamed for needing help. Marcus stared at those words for a long time. Then he quietly folded the note and placed it back inside the folder. I blame the wrong person, he whispered. Their father slowly lowered himself into a chair. His shoulders seemed smaller than they had been that morning. I did too. Late that afternoon, my phone rang. This time it was my father. I answered after a moment. Hello? His voice sounded older somehow. Heavier. I owe you an apology. I didn't interrupt. I judged you without asking a single question. Another pause. I called you names. Cruel names. I believed a lie because it was easier than finding the truth. I looked out the window of my condo at the unfinished landscaping, at the afternoon sun making the small yard look peaceful despite everything. You don't owe me an explanation anymore, Dad. I know, he said quietly. I only wish I'd asked sooner. So do I. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, he whispered, I found out you've been paying for my prescription insurance. You needed it. I could have thanked you. I closed my eyes. I wasn't looking for thanks. I know, he said. And somehow that makes this even worse. Marcus called the following evening. I've been going through every account. What did you find? We can't keep living the way we have. His voice carried none of the confidence it once held. The new SUV is being sold. The vacation we booked has been cancelled. We're meeting with the bank Monday morning. He paused. I'm sorry it came to this. So am I. Then he surprised me. I should have asked questions months ago. I said nothing because there was nothing left to excuse. You trusted your wife. That's not a failure. I stopped paying attention, he said. There's no excuse left for that. Tanya never called to apologize. Instead, she sent a text message 3 days later. You could have warned us. I read it twice before typing my reply. I did. You told me to move out. I pressed send. She never answered back. News travels quickly in families. Within a week, every relative who had stood in that driveway that Saturday had learned the truth. Aunt Carol called first. I owe you an apology. I believed what I was told. I should have asked your side. Then Uncle Robert. Then James. Then my other cousins. Each conversation sounded almost identical. We should have questioned it. We're sorry. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to make everyone comfortable by minimizing their mistakes or offering easy forgiveness. I accepted the apologies that felt genuine. The others I simply acknowledged and moved forward from. Something shifted inside me during those conversations. I realized I had spent so much energy managing other people's emotions that I had forgotten to manage my own. Without that monthly $3,200 leaving my account, my own future changed almost immediately. I paid extra toward my condo mortgage. I rebuilt my investment portfolio faster than I had planned. I furnished every room exactly the way I wanted. I bought art. I installed new countertops. For the first time in years, my paycheck was building my own life instead of quietly holding someone else's together. But here's what changed most profoundly: my understanding of what helping actually means. I stopped believing that protecting people requires sacrificing your own dignity. Helping someone in genuine need is generosity. Helping someone who rewrites your kindness into weakness, who takes credit for your sacrifice, who publicly shames you for it, that's not generosity. That's complicity in your own erasure. Several months later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. My father's handwriting covered the front. Inside was a handwritten letter. He apologized for every insult, for every assumption, for every moment he praised the wrong person, while overlooking the one who had quietly carried the family. At the end, he wrote, I hope one day you'll let me earn back the trust I threw away so carelessly. I folded the letter carefully and placed it inside a drawer. I forgave him. But forgiveness didn't mean returning to the role I had left behind. It didn't mean going back to the cage of protecting people who don't deserve protection. I need to tell you something I've learned, and I want you to sit with this. Healthy boundaries aren't selfish. They're survival. They're the greatest gift you can give yourself, because they're the greatest gift you can give others. When you stop enabling someone, you force them to face reality. You give them the opportunity to grow. You stop being their crutch and start being their mirror. I still believe in helping family. I still believe in sacrifice. But I believe in it now, from a place of choice, not compulsion, from a place of strength, not depletion. The day Tanya told me to move out, she thought she was getting rid of the family's burden. She had no idea she was removing the one person who had been carrying the weight all along. Here's what I want to ask you. Have you ever been the person silently holding something together while everyone around you took it for granted? Have you ever protected someone by accepting their judgment of you? Have you ever felt that specific loneliness of being invisible in your own sacrifice? Because if you have, I want you to know this. Your kindness doesn't require your self-annihilation. Your generosity doesn't require your erasure. And the people who love you should never ask you to choose between helping them and protecting yourself. I'm so glad you watched this story with me. If it resonated, I'd love to know. Tell me in the comments. Who do you think was right here, and why? Are you the person who usually carries the weight in your family or relationships? And where are you watching this from right now? What time is it where you are? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear your story too. If this story stayed with you, please subscribe to this channel. I share stories about family, boundaries, courage, and the moments that change everything. New videos every week, and I'd love to have you as part of this community. Thank you for being here. This is a fictional story, inspired by real emotional experiences, fully rewritten and reimagined in Detroit to create original content. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental.